Why Sons Hurt Their Mothers, The Hidden Truth Revealed by Carl Jung. What if I told you that the most important relationship in a man's life isn't with his romantic partner, but with his mother? And what if that same relationship holds the key to understanding why some sons seem to hurt the very woman who brought them into this world? Today, we're diving deep into one of psychology's most profound and controversial topics. We'll explore Carl Jung's groundbreaking insights about the mother-son dynamic, uncover hidden psychological patterns that have been shaping human behavior for millennia, and reveal why understanding this relationship is crucial for both personal healing and healthy relationships. I'm going to share with you concepts that might challenge everything you thought you knew about family dynamics, masculine development, and the unconscious forces that drive our behavior. Whether you're a son trying to understand your own patterns, a mother seeking clarity, or someone interested in the deeper workings of the human psyche, this video will give you tools and insights that could transform your understanding of yourself and your relationships. But before we begin, I want to be clear. This isn't about blame. It's about understanding. It's about healing. And it's about breaking cycles that have been repeating for generations. So grab a notepad, settle in, and let's explore the hidden truth that Carl Jung revealed about why sons sometimes hurt their mothers. Carl Gustav Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, spent decades studying the human psyche. Unlike his contemporary Freud, who focused heavily on sexual drives, Jung was fascinated by the deeper, symbolic patterns that govern our unconscious behavior. Jung discovered something profound, that our relationships with our parents, particularly the mother-son relationship, create psychological templates that influence every aspect of our adult lives. These templates operate largely below the level of conscious awareness, driving behaviors that can seem inexplicable or even destructive. Research shows that 60% of adult men report having complicated relationships with their mothers. Family therapists consistently rank mother-son dynamics as one of the most challenging family relationships to navigate. But why is this the case? Today's video is structured in 5 major sections. 1. The Jungian framework. Understanding the mother complex. 2. The developmental journey from fusion to separation. 3. The shadow dynamics. Why hurt happens. 4. The anima projection. How mother becomes every woman. 5. Healing and integration. Breaking the cycle. Each section builds on the last, so I encourage you to watch the full video to get the complete picture. And if this content resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button. We dive deep into psychological insights like this every week. Section 1, the Jungian framework, understanding the mother complex. To understand why sons sometimes hurt their mothers, we first need to understand what Jung called the mother complex. This isn't just about having issues with your mom. It's about an entire constellation of emotions, memories, and unconscious patterns that form around the mother figure. The nature of complexes. Jung discovered that we all carry what he called complexes, autonomous clusters of psychic energy that operate independently of our conscious will. Think of them like psychological subpersonalities that can take over our behavior in certain situations. The mother complex is perhaps the most powerful of all complexes because it forms during our most vulnerable developmental period. From birth to approximately age 6, we exist in what Jung called a state of participation, mystique with our mother, a psychological fusion where the boundaries between self and mother are blurred or non-existent. Let me share an example. I once worked with a client, let's call him Mark, who was a successful businessman but couldn't maintain romantic relationships. Every time a woman got close to him, he would find fault with her and push her away. Through our work together, we discovered that Mark's mother had been extremely critical and controlling during his childhood. His mother complex was programmed with the belief that women will try to control and diminish me. So he unconsciously sabotaged relationships to protect himself from this perceived threat. The positive and negative mother. Jung identified that the mother complex contains both positive and negative aspects, what he called the good mother and the terrible mother. The good mother represents nurturing, protection, wisdom, and unconditional love. The terrible mother represents smothering, control, criticism, and emotional manipulation. Most mothers, being human, embody aspects of both. But children, with their black and white thinking, often struggle to integrate these contradictory experiences. This creates what psychologists call splitting, where the mother is seen as either all good or all bad, rather than a complex human being with both positive and negative qualities. Why this matters? When a son carries an unintegrated mother complex into adulthood, it affects every relationship he has. His romantic partnerships, his friendships, his relationship with authority figures, and yes, his ongoing relationship with his actual mother, all become filtered through these unconscious patterns. The son might find himself either constantly seeking mother-like figures who will nurture and care for him, rejecting and pushing away anyone who reminds him of his mother's negative qualities, alternating between these two extremes in a confusing pattern. The son might find himself either constantly seeking mother-like figures who will nurture and care for him, rejecting and pushing away anyone who reminds him of his mother's negative qualities, alternating between these two extremes in a confusing pattern. As you're listening to this, you might be thinking about your own experiences. Drop a comment below if you recognize any of these patterns in yourself or someone you know. Remember, awareness is the first step toward healing. Jung's key insight. Here's Jung's crucial insight. The son doesn't consciously choose to hurt his mother. The hurt comes from unconscious attempts to separate from the mother, complex while simultaneously being terrified of losing the connection entirely. It's a psychological double bind that creates enormous internal tension. The son needs to individuate, to become his own person, but the mother complex pulls him back toward fusion and dependency. This creates what Jung called the struggle for psychological birth. And in this struggle, both mother and son can get hurt. Section 2. The developmental journey from fusion to separation. Now that we understand the framework, let's trace the developmental journey that creates these complex dynamics. Understanding this journey is crucial because it shows us that what looks like deliberate cruelty is often a natural but painful developmental process gone wrong. Stage 1, the Garden of Eden, ages 0-3. In the beginning there is paradise. The infant son exists in complete union with the mother. She is his entire world, the source of all comfort, nourishment, and safety. Jung called this the Ouroboros stage, referencing the ancient symbol of the snake eating its own tail, representing unity and wholeness. During this stage, the son doesn't experience himself as separate from his mother. Her moods become his moods. Her presence means safety. Her absence means terror. This isn't pathological, it's exactly how nature designed early childhood development. But here's where things get complex. Some mothers, due to their own unresolved issues, have difficulty allowing this natural developmental process to unfold. They might become overly anxious about separation, use the child to meet their own emotional needs, resist the child's growing independence, create guilt around normal developmental milestones. Stage 2, the first separation, ages 3-6. Around age 3, the son begins to develop what psychologists call theory of mind, the recognition that other people have thoughts and feelings different from his own. This is the beginning of psychological separation, but it's terrifying for a child who has known only union. Jung observed that this stage often coincides with what he called the discovery of the father. The father represents the outside world, adventure, and differentiation from the mother. In healthy development, the father serves as a bridge between the mother-child dyad and the larger world. But what happens when this process gets disrupted? Consider the story of James, whose father left when he was 4 years old. Without a strong paternal figure to model healthy separation, James remained psychologically fused with his mother well into his adult years. When he finally attempted to individuate in his 30s by getting married, his mother experienced it as abandonment and rejection. The resulting conflict was painful for both of them, but it was actually a delayed developmental process finally playing out. Stage 3, the heroic journey, ages 12 to 18. Adolescence represents what Jung called the heroic journey, the son's attempt to slay the dragon and rescue the treasure. But here's the twist. In the mother-son dynamic, the mother is both the dragon to be slain and the treasure to be rescued. The adolescent son needs to reject his mother's authority and influence in order to establish his own identity. This often manifests as criticism of the mother's values and choices, emotional withdrawal and secretiveness, rebellion against family rules and expectations, apparent rejection of everything the mother represents. From the mother's perspective, this can feel like a devastating betrayal. The sweet, loving child who once adored her now seems to view her as the enemy. But Jung would say this apparent cruelty is actually evidence of healthy development. The son is doing the psychological work necessary to become an independent adult. When development goes wrong, problems arise when either the mother or the son, or both, cannot navigate this developmental process successfully. 1. The possessive mother. Some mothers, often unconsciously, sabotage their sons' attempts at independence. They might use guilt, manipulation, or emotional blackmail to keep the son psychologically bound to them. 2. The abandoned son. Some sons, terrified of their own aggressive impulses toward the mother, swing to the opposite extreme and cut off all emotional connection. They become cold, distant, and seemingly uncaring. The eternal boy. Other sons never complete the separation process and remain psychological. Children well into adulthood, unable to form mature relationships or take full responsibility for their lives. The cultural dimension. Jung also recognized that these patterns are influenced by cultural factors. In cultures where extended family ties are highly valued, the mother-son bond might remain stronger throughout life. In individualistic cultures, there's more pressure for complete separation. Neither approach is inherently right or wrong, but problems arise when there's a mismatch between cultural expectations and individual psychological needs. I want to pause here and address something. I know many of you might be thinking, but what about daughters and fathers? What about mothers and daughters? You're absolutely right that these dynamics exist in other family relationships too. Jung actually wrote about the father complex and the daughter-mother dynamic as well, but the mother-son relationship has unique characteristics because of the gender difference combined with the intensity of the early bonding period. It creates a specific set of psychological challenges that we don't see in quite the same way in other family relationships. The incomplete journey. Here's the crucial point. In our modern world, many sons never complete this developmental journey successfully. They remain stuck in one of the intermediate stages, creating ongoing pain and conflict in the mother-son relationship. The son isn't trying to hurt his mother. He's trying to complete a developmental process that got interrupted or distorted earlier in life. Understanding this reframes the entire conversation. Instead of asking, why is my son being cruel to me? Or why can't I stop hurting my mother? We can ask, what developmental work still needs to be completed? And how can we support that process in a healthy way? Section 3, the shadow dynamics, why hurt happens. Now we come to perhaps the most important part of Jung's analysis, the role of what he called the shadow in mother-son dynamics. This is where we really understand why hurt happens. Even when both parties love each other deeply, understanding the shadow in Jungian psychology represents the parts of ourselves that we've rejected, denied, or pushed into the unconscious. It contains not just our negative traits, but also our unrealized potential, our authentic emotions, and aspects of ourselves that don't fit with our conscious self-image. In the mother-son relationship, Both parties develop shadows around each other. Let me explain what this looks like. The son's shadow toward the mother. From early childhood, sons learn, both explicitly and implicitly, that certain feelings and behaviors toward their mothers are unacceptable. Anger at the mother is often forbidden or heavily shamed. Sexual feelings that naturally arise during development create enormous guilt. The desire for independence is sometimes labeled as selfish or ungrateful. Criticism of the mother may be seen as a violation of cultural or religious values. All of these forbidden feelings and impulses get pushed into the shadow. But here's Jung's crucial insight. What we push into the shadow doesn't disappear. It gains power in the unconscious and eventually finds ways to express itself. Think about David, a 35-year-old man who describes himself as devoted to his mother. He calls her daily, never misses family events, and publicly praises her sacrifices. But in private, he makes sarcastic comments about her to his wife, forgets to follow through on promises he makes to her, and finds himself feeling inexplicably irritated whenever she calls. David's conscious mind cannot accept that he has anger toward his mother. It conflicts too much with his self-image as a good son. So the anger gets expressed through passive-aggressive behavior, creating a pattern of subtle hurt that's confusing for everyone involved. The mother's shadow toward the son. Mothers also develop shadow material around their sons. Resentment about sacrifices made during child rearing. Jealousy of the son's freedom and opportunities. Fear of abandonment disguised as concern for his well-being. Competitive feelings with the son's romantic partners. Disappointment that the son isn't living up to her projections and dreams. A mother might consciously believe she only wants her son's happiness, while unconsciously undermining his independence, because she fears being left alone. The shadow dance. Here's where it gets really complex. The mothers and sons' shadows often trigger each other in an unconscious dance of mutual hurt. The son's repressed anger might manifest as emotional withdrawal. The mother, sensing this withdrawal but not understanding its source, becomes anxious and clingy. Her clinginess triggers the son's fear of engulfment, causing him to withdraw further. Her increased anxiety leads to criticism or guilt tripping, which activates the son's shadow anger, and the cycle continues. Neither party is consciously choosing to hurt the other, but their unconscious shadow material is creating a pattern of mutual damage. Projection and the shadow. Jung identified projection as one of the primary ways the shadow expresses itself in relationships. We tend to see in others the qualities we've rejected in ourselves. A son who has pushed his own neediness into the shadow might become highly critical of his mother's emotional needs, labeling her as needy or clingy. A mother who has repressed her own desire for freedom might criticize her son as selfish or irresponsible when he makes independent choices. The scapegoat dynamic. Sometimes the mother-son relationship becomes the container for shadow material from the entire family system. The son might carry the shadow for an absent or emotionally unavailable father. The mother might become the target for frustrations that actually belong elsewhere in the son's life. I want to share the story of Maria and her son Carlos. Maria was a single mother who worked 2 jobs to support her family. Carlos was a high-achieving student who went on to become a successful doctor. From the outside, their relationship looked perfect, a hard-working mother whose sacrifices paid off. But Carlos couldn't understand why he felt so angry with his mother. In therapy, we discovered that Carlos had never been allowed to express normal childhood frustrations because his mother was working so hard. He had to be the good boy who never caused problems. All of his normal aggressive energy got pushed into the shadow. As an adult, Carlos found himself being hypercritical of his mother's choices, picking fights about minor issues, and feeling guilty about his success because it reminded him of her sacrifices. The shadow anger from his childhood was finally finding expression, but in ways that hurt both of them. Religious and cultural shadows. The mother-son shadow dynamic is often complicated by religious or cultural injunctions. Honor thy father and mother can be used to suppress legitimate grievances. Cultural expectations about masculinity can prevent sons from expressing vulnerability. Religious concepts of sacrifice and selflessness can enable unhealthy relationship patterns. Traditional gender roles can trap both mothers and sons in rigid expectations. The positive shadow. It's important to note that the shadow isn't only negative. Jung also spoke about the golden shadow, positive qualities that we've disowned. In mother-son relationships, this might include the son's capacity for tenderness and nurturing, pushed away as unmanly, the mother's own need for independence and self-actualization, the son's right to set boundaries and have preferences, the mother's wisdom and strength, diminished by cultural sexism. Breaking the shadow cycle. The key to healing shadow dynamics is consciousness. When both mother and son can acknowledge and take responsibility for their own shadow material, the unconscious hurt patterns begin to dissolve. This doesn't mean expressing every shadow impulse. That would be destructive. It means developing the capacity to recognize shadow feelings without being controlled by them, and finding healthy ways to integrate these disowned aspects of the self. Before we move on, I want you to consider what aspects of yourself might you have pushed into the shadow in relation to family relationships? What feelings or desires have you been taught are unacceptable? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes, just naming these patterns can begin the healing process. Section 4. The Anima Projection. How Mother Becomes Every Woman. Now we're going to explore one of Jung's most profound and controversial insights, the concept of the anima, and how the mother-son relationship creates a template that influences every romantic relationship a man will ever have. This is where we see how mother wounds can perpetuate across generations. Understanding the anima. The anima, in Jungian psychology, represents the feminine aspect within every man's psyche. It's not just about attraction to women. It's about how a man relates to his own emotions, intuition, creativity, and capacity for relationship. Jung believed that a man's anima is initially shaped by his earliest experiences with the feminine, primarily through his relationship with his mother. Think of the anima as an internal feminine figure that influences what kind of woman a man is attracted to, how he behaves in romantic relationships, his capacity for emotional intimacy, his ability to access his own feeling nature, his relationship to the creative and spiritual aspects of life. The mother as the first woman. For every son, the mother is the first woman he knows. She becomes the template, the original pattern, for how he understands the feminine. This happens largely below the level of consciousness, through thousands of micro-interactions during the most formative years of life. If a son's early experience with his mother was nurturing and secure, his anima tends to be positive. He's drawn to women who can love and support him, and he's able to be loving and supportive in return. But if the early mother relationship was problematic, controlling, rejecting, inconsistent, or overwhelming, the son's anima becomes complex. He might find himself unconsciously attracted to women who recreate the familiar patterns of his childhood, even when those patterns are destructive. The 4 stages of anima development. Jung identified 4 stages of anima development, and many men get stuck at the earlier stages due to unresolved mother issues. 1. Eve, the biological woman. At this stage, the anima is purely instinctual. The man is attracted to women primarily for physical or reproductive reasons. This is normal in adolescence, but becomes problematic if a man never develops beyond it. 2. Helen, the romantic ideal. The anima becomes idealized and romanticized. The man projects perfect beauty and desirability onto women. This is the stage of romantic obsession and falling in love with love. Many men with unresolved mother complexes get stuck here, constantly seeking the perfect woman who will fulfill all their needs. 3. Mary, the spiritual mother. The anima takes on qualities of wisdom, nurturing, and spiritual guidance. This can be healthy, but it becomes problematic when the man expects his partner to be his therapist, spiritual guide, and emotional caretaker, essentially trying to recreate the ideal mother he never had. 4. Sophia, the wise woman. The mature anima represents wisdom, creativity, and spiritual insight. The man has integrated his feminine side and can relate to women as equals. appreciating both their humanity and their unique gifts. How mother wounds distort the anima. When a son has unresolved issues with his mother, his anima becomes contaminated with mother-complex material. This creates several problematic patterns. The mother-lover confusion. Some men unconsciously seek romantic partners who will mother them. They want unconditional love, constant nurturing, and someone who will take care of all their practical and emotional needs. When their partner inevitably cannot live up to this impossible standard, they become critical and rejecting, just as they might have learned to be with their actual mother. Consider Michael, whose mother was emotionally unavailable due to her own depression. Michael learned early that love was something he had to earn through achievement. As an adult, he found himself in a pattern of pursuing emotionally distant women, trying to win their love through success and performance. When these relationships inevitably failed, he would blame the women for being cold or unappreciative, never recognizing that he was unconsciously recreating his childhood dynamic. The Madonna whore complex. This is perhaps the most well-known distortion of the anima. Men with certain types of mother complexes split women into two categories: pure, asexual Madonnas, who are too good to desire sexually, and sexual whores, who are not worthy of respect or love. This split often develops when a son has been made to feel that his sexual nature is dangerous or shameful, or when he's been parentified, made to take care of his mother emotionally, in ways that make sexuality feel threatening to the mother-son bond. The devouring mother projection. Some men, particularly those who had controlling or overwhelming mothers, project the devouring mother archetype onto every woman they get close to. They become hypervigilant for signs of control or manipulation, often sabotaging relationships. When women show normal needs for commitment or emotional intimacy. The rejecting mother projection. Men whose mothers were critical, rejecting, or abandoning often expect every woman to eventually leave or hurt them. They might test relationships through provocation, push women away before they can be rejected, or remain emotionally unavailable as protection against anticipated abandonment. The generational cycle. Here's where this gets really tragic. These anima distortions don't just affect the man's romantic relationships, they often get passed down to the next generation. A man who has unresolved mother issues might choose a partner who has similar unresolved issues, recreate dysfunctional family patterns with his own children, be unable to model healthy masculine energy for his sons, struggle to support his daughter's healthy relationship with their own femininity. Breaking the anima projection. The key to healing anima projections is what Jung called withdrawing projections. Learning to see women as they actually are rather than as carriers of our unconscious complexes. This involves several steps. 1. Recognizing the patterns. Becoming conscious of how mother issues show up in romantic relationships. Online communities for those working on family healing. Follow-up videos I'm planning on related topics. What's next on this channel? If you found this deep dive valuable, you'll want to subscribe because we're planning several follow-up videos. The father complex. How daughters are shaped by their relationship with dad. Breaking generational trauma. A Jungian approach to family healing. The psychology of healthy boundaries in family relationships. Understanding your shadow. Practical exercises for self-discovery. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss these upcoming explorations. Final thoughts. Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The mother-son relationship, with all its complexity and potential for both hurt and healing, offers us a profound opportunity for self-understanding and growth. The goal isn't to achieve perfect relationships. It's to bring consciousness to our unconscious patterns so we can choose our responses rather than being controlled by invisible forces from the past. Whether you're a son seeking to understand your own behavior, a mother trying to navigate this complex relationship, or someone interested in the deeper workings of human psychology, I hope this exploration has given you valuable insights and tools for your own journey. Remember, awareness is the beginning of healing, but it's not the end. The real work happens in how we apply these insights in our daily lives, in our actual relationships, and in our ongoing commitment to growth and consciousness. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into one of psychology's most profound and challenging topics. Your engagement, your questions, and your own healing journey contribute to the collective evolution of human consciousness that Jung believed was possible. Until next time, be gentle with yourself and others as you navigate these complex waters. Healing happens one conscious choice at a time. 3. Developing the inner feminine. Learning to nurture yourself instead of expecting women to do it for you. 4. Practicing differentiation. Seeing your partner as a separate person with her own needs and reality. Healing the mother relationship. When possible, doing the work to heal the actual relationship with your mother. The cultural dimension. It's important to recognize that these patterns are reinforced by cultural messages about gender and relationships. Many cultures still teach that women should be the primary nurturers and emotional caretakers, which enables men to avoid developing their own emotional capacities. The anima work isn't just about individual healing. It's about evolving our collective understanding of healthy relationships and gender roles. For mothers watching this, if you're a mother watching this video, you might be feeling concerned about how you're influencing your son's future relationships. Please remember that perfectionism isn't the goal. Awareness is. The best thing you can do is work on your own unresolved psychological material. Allow your son age-appropriate independence. Model healthy relationships in your own life. Seek support when you need it rather than leaning on your son emotionally. Remember that some conflict and struggle in the mother-son relationship is normal and even necessary. The healing potential. When a man does the work to heal his anima projections, the benefits extend far beyond his romantic relationships. He often finds greater emotional intelligence and self-awareness, improved friendships and professional relationships, access to creativity and intuitive wisdom, the ability to be truly intimate without losing himself, freedom from unconscious patterns that were limiting his life choices, and perhaps most importantly, he becomes capable of breaking the generational cycle, offering his own children a healthier model of masculine energy. Section 5. Healing and integration. Breaking the cycle. We've explored the problem from multiple angles. Now let's focus on solutions. Jung believed that consciousness was the ultimate healing force, and that when we bring unconscious patterns into the light of awareness, they lose their power to control our behavior. The individual journey for sons. If you're a son struggling with these dynamics, here are the key steps Jung would recommend. 1. Acknowledge the complex. The first step is admitting that you have a mother complex and that it's affecting your life. This isn't about blame. It's about taking responsibility for your own healing. Many men resist this step because they think it means criticizing their mothers, but that's not what this is about. It's about recognizing unconscious patterns, so you can choose more conscious responses. 2. Grieve what was missing. Every son needs to grieve the perfect mother he never had, because no human mother is perfect. It's not about hating your actual mother. It's about releasing the fantasy of the ideal mother so you can appreciate the real woman who raised you. 3. Develop your inner mother. Jung emphasized that healing involves developing the positive aspects of the mother complex within yourself. Learn to nurture yourself, to soothe your own emotional wounds, to provide yourself with the care and validation you once sought from others. This is often called reparenting yourself. 4. Practice differentiation. Work on seeing your mother and other women as separate individuals with their own histories, wounds, and limitations. This means giving up both idealizing and demonizing, and learning to relate to women as complex human beings rather than as extensions of your unconscious complexes. 5. Express anger constructively. Many sons have never learned to express anger toward their mothers in healthy ways. This doesn't mean attacking or blaming. It means learning to set boundaries Express preferences and advocate for your own needs without guilt or aggression. The individual journey for mothers. If you're a mother recognizing these patterns, your healing work involves 1. Examine your own mother relationship. Often, the way we mother our sons is influenced by our own unresolved issues with our mothers. Doing your own mother-daughter work can free you from unconsciously repeating problematic patterns. 2. Separate your needs from your sons. One of the most important things a mother can do is recognize when she's using her son to meet her own emotional needs. This might include looking to him for companionship, validation, or protection from her own anxieties. Sons are not meant to be their mother's emotional partners or caretakers. 3. Support healthy separation. Even though it's painful, supporting your son's individuation process is one of the greatest gifts you can give him. This means celebrating his independence, encouraging his relationships with others, and resisting the urge to make him feel guilty for growing up. 4. Heal your own wounds. Many mothers project their own unhealed relationship wounds onto their sons. Working through your own trauma, disappointments, and unmet needs can free your son from carrying the burden of your unconscious pain. Joint healing, when possible. Sometimes mothers and sons can work together on healing these patterns. 1. Honest communication. This involves both parties taking responsibility for their contributions to the dynamic. The son might say, "I realize I've been pushing you away because I'm afraid of being controlled." While the mother might acknowledge, "I can see that my anxiety about your independence has been overwhelming for you." 2. Setting healthy boundaries. Both parties need to learn to set and respect boundaries. Sons need to learn they can love their mothers while still having their own lives. Mothers need to learn they can support their sons without managing every aspect of their experience. 3. Grieving together. Sometimes it's healing for